everyone and welcome to my studio. For those who don't know me, my name is Veronika Olivier and I am a multidisciplinary artist from South Africa. Many of you might know me from my social platform, but also from this website in the workshop sections where you will find my textures and fibers workshop to create the most amazing animal sculptures. Now today, I am going to show you how to use all your off-cut fabrics to make something beautiful and something useful. And we are going to make art vases or bowls. I make a lot of art vases as well, but I just want to show you that I am going to show you how to make one of these bowls, which is rock solid hard and it's made from textile. So I hope you enjoy this lesson and let's get crafty.
Okay, so we are going to start by using a plastic bowl that I am going to cover with some cling wrap. I am going to fold it over and just press the excess on the inside of this bowl. Make sure that you have quite a bit on the inside because that is what we're going to hold on to when we pull the plastic bowl out. For our next step, we are going to use pieces of plaster of Paris bandage to make the base for our textile art bowl. Cut the bandage into small squares or strips that will be easy to manage throughout this process. Cut the bandage into small squares or strips that will be easy to manage throughout this process. Have a bowl of water ready. The temperature is not relevant. And start by simply dipping your strip quickly into the water and rubbing it down on the base of the bowl. This is just going to be the first layer, so we don't need to worry if it's perfect or not. Take the next strip, quickly dip it, and make sure that you've got about a 50% overlay onto your previous strip and rub it down. Turn your bowl and continue with this process until you reach the top of the lid, in this case which will be the bottom because I'm working upside down. Okay, so after every 5 or 6 strips, I start with the second layer because then I'm adding a dry strip. There is enough moisture in the previous layer to make sure that I can rub it down smoothly and without having to put too much water onto the bowl. And now I am just going to continue this process until I have 2 or 3 layers of the plaster of Paris bandage strips on my bowl. When I use the plaster of Paris bandage strips to make bowls that I want to paint, then I would normally repeat this process until I have 5 or 6 layers. But because I'm going to add textiles, I'm basically just creating a base to work over, and 2 or 3 layers will be quite sufficient. You can see that I am continuing to rub this dry strip that I placed over the wet strips to make sure that everything is smooth and that there is no creases. When you get close to the edge, you have to make sure that your strips are in line with the bottom of the bowl. Please don't fold it over. If you're going to fold it over, then it is going to be extremely difficult to remove the plastic bowl as well as the plastic wrap from your bake. Just continue this process until you also have 2 or 3 layers at the top of the bowl. Allow your bowl to dry overnight and make absolutely sure that it is dry before you remove the plastic container from the plaster of Paris bowl. Simply take pieces of your plastic wrap together and gently pull on it to remove the plastic bowl. And there you have it, a perfect plaster of Paris. Okay, so like I've said before, if you want to make bowls that you can paint, you will need to put 5 or 6 or even 7 layers of the plaster of bandage over each other, and you get a beautiful bowl that almost looks like paper mache. But today we are going to use a thinner one because we are going to decorate it further with fabrics. I use a lot of textile fabric in my sculpting, and the offcut is ideal for projects like this. The way I select my fabrics is purely on intuition. I sometimes work with bigger blocks, and sometimes I will use the very small pieces that was left over from my sculptures to make these art balls. But today I'm going to go through this pile of blocks that I bought from a soft furnishing manufacturer. So these are all designer fabrics, and I buy these small pieces from them so that I have a variety to choose from. I normally start by sorting them into colors. So that will give me an idea of what I want to do and how I'm going to do it, is by just first not looking at the designs, only the colors. So I'm continuing here with a red pile, a green pile, I've got black and white, yellow, and then I also have this pile with the beautiful teal in it. And as I am packing these fabrics onto the piles, my mind is already forming a process and an idea of what I want to do. I'm looking at the gray that I have here. That can go onto the black and white or neutral tones. And then I found this. It is an amazing black and white print of a retro lady that is sunbathing. And even though I'm continuing to sort out my piles, my mind is leaning towards the black and white and this beautiful print that I found. Okay, at this stage, I'm already leaning towards the gray and the teal, but this lady with her beautiful smile keeps on looking at me and smiling back at me. And as I go through the process, looking for something interesting, I'm already discarding the neutral tones with the black. I can already feel that I'm not going to do the orange. And yes, I think it's going to come down to choosing between the teal and grays and the black and white with this beautiful African lady. So now I have to decide between the two, and I'm just going through all the patterns and the color schemes. And on this pile, the one with the lady that I like so much, I don't have as many black and white pieces of fabric, but I'll find something in my studio. I also have this one print that's got almost like a neutral tone on it, so I'm discarding that. And yes, I've got this piece that's almost like you can see through it. That will also be beautiful and create for interesting effect on my bowl. And I'm just removing some of the duplicates. And yes, so my mind is made up with the lady wheel. Okay, so I found this beautiful shwe African print from my sculpting stash. And I also just took out some white cotton, and we are going to start by cutting pieces for our bowl. Now I normally like to tear my fabrics because at the ends it leaves frayings and pieces of thread that is so interesting once you start gluing it down. So yes, I'm just going to start with a cut and then tear the rest of my fabric. Now sometimes it's not easy to tear the fabric, especially the upholstery fabric, so then I simply cut it. This is a personal choice, and if you would like to rather just cut your squares or your strips, you are welcome to do so. You will see that I've only cut my shwe black and my white cotton because I am going to use this to prepare the bowl. You can say it's almost like the gesso of textiles, and I'm going to cover my whole bowl with pieces of this. I'm also going to use an old brush because I don't want the gel medium to damage my paint brushes. And yes, like I've said, we are going to use gel medium. You can also use any other glue-based product to glue your fabrics down on inside and outside your bowl. You can even use textile or fabric glue if you want to, and even the normal white glue diluted with a little bit of lukewarm water will work perfect. The only thing that you need to make sure is that you apply enough of the medium or glue for your textiles to adhere to the plaster of Paris. Another thing that you have to bear in mind is, remember I said it's plaster of Paris, and anything wet or moist is going to soften the surface. So don't put too much glue on so that it saturates into the plaster of Paris and makes your bowl soggy, because then it is going to collapse. Okay, so the next part I'm also going to speed up, because what I'm doing now is I'm preparing my bowl for all those beautiful textiles that I've selected, and I'm simply randomly gluing or collaging down pieces of white cotton and pieces of the black shwe fabric that I have. You can see here that all I'm doing is I'm just making sure like the same with collage paper, that these pieces overlap, and then all these loose pieces of thread, I just leave it there to create interest and texture into my fabrics. One thing that I've learned from working with fabrics as a sculptor is that you have to be very patient, because sometimes the layers in between takes a long time to dry. Now with gel medium, it is not so long, but some of the textile glues, depending on the brand that you buy, can take overnight before it dries. That is also one of the reasons why I prefer to work with gel medium instead of textile glue. When I get to the top of the bowl, I simply just add some gel medium on the outside, and I make sure that I cover over the edge of the bowl. And yes, I'm just going to continue this process until I'm happy that every single part of the plaster of Paris has got a piece of fabric on it. You would have noticed that I start on the inside, because it makes it so much easier to be able to do the outside of the bowl while the inside is still wet. While there is a lot of gel medium on your fabrics, it's quite tricky to handle it without getting some of the pieces stuck on your fingers and pulling away from the plaster of Paris. Okay, so as with the inside, I am simply going to repeat this process of preparing my bowl for the actual fabrics that I'm going to use. So you could say, like I've said, this is kind of like the gesso for the painting, and then the beautiful fabrics will be the actual paint that we are going to use. This is quite an intuitive process, and you simply just follow your heart and continue to glue on pieces until you are happy. I absolutely love this pieces of thread that comes out of one of the black blocks. Okay, so I've prepared my palette, if you want to call it that. The same that you would prepare a paint palette. I have already cut my lady out, and I'm going to use her face. I've got an extra piece of her body and feet, and then I've already cut all my beautiful fabrics into small squares, and one or two of them into a strip, and I'm ready to start decorating my canvas, which is the bowl. One thing to remember is that once you've done the first layer of textiles, is that you can put it out in the sun to dry, because it makes it so much easier if you work on a dry surface than wet textiles. Okay, so I'm ready to start, you could say, painting or collaging down my fabrics and my image. And this is the process where you kind of putting a little bit of thought into it, and I am just putting gel medium in my bowl, and then alternate between my beautiful fabrics and putting it over the seams of the black and the white, almost like you would do in mixed media when you want to bring a little bit of cohesion into your painting and have everything kind of like form as a unity. And as I go along, as I said, it's very intuitive. I follow my instinct and I follow my heart, but as you follow me, you will see, you will get the impression of how I think and how I do things, because there is a place here in the bowl where I'm going to glue down the lady, and if I'm going to do that, it's going to take up quite a bit of the space, so I don't need to cover that area and waste my beautiful fabrics. You can see that I continuously move the bowl around to make sure that there is balance between the lighter and the darker pieces of the fabric, just like you would in with a painting. And then again, I've got all these pieces of thread that comes from the fabric as I tore it, and I just love it. I just paint it, I glue it down, and I let it go in any direction and have a mind of its own, because that is what makes the bowl unique. It creates interest and texture. I sometimes also do things deliberately, like I tore off this side of the fabric with the washing instruction and the name of the fabric, and I love to collage these kind of things into my textile sculptures as well, because it makes it interesting if you can read some of the things or part of the words, and I just love the whole process. You will see here on the bottom part of my hand is quite a big white area, and this is where I'm going to collage down the face of this beautiful lady. Okay, so I'm ready to position the lady where I want to put her. And I'm just going to make sure that she will fit because I want to use this whole piece. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to cut tiny slits into her all the way around, because remember the bowl is round, and if I'm going to collage it down, there is going to be folds. Now these tiny little slits will just make sure that the fabric will fold over each other and it will be flat and smooth. Okay, so I'm just going to continue this process until I am satisfied with the inside. I'm just putting 1 or 2 blocks to just as a tiny overlay over her body, maybe from the side, maybe over one of the tiny splits that I cut into her, so that it's not so obvious that the fabric is folded there. And yes, as soon as I'm happy with the inside, I'm going to move on to the outside and just position the pieces that I would like to use on the bowl, and then continue with the finishing touches, which will be my extra pieces of designer fabric. I'm doing on the outside exactly what I did on the inside, and I'm just following my intuition and making sure that there's balance in the bowl and that everything flows together. And yes, so this is a very intuitive process. It's much easier if you don't have a physical picture that you work with and you only have patterns. So maybe start out with that. But yes, just continue the process until you've attached all your beautiful pieces of fabric with gel medium. Okay, I left it out in the sun to dry and just look at it. It is absolutely stunning. I absolutely love this bowl. And now I would normally use pattern paper on my sculptures or my bowls, but because this is a pure black and white bowl, I do have a little bit of gray in there just to break it. I found this tissue paper with newspaper print on it. Now, a lot of the articles is about the Titanic, so I'm just going to avoid using those words. But yes, I'm also just collaging down the tissue paper with the words just to create some interest and to bring all my pieces of fabric together. Okay, so this whole process is repetitive, and you glue down words or pattern pieces until you are happy and satisfied with the decoration of your bowl. One of the last processes that I do is to take some acrylic paint just to make sure that everything blends together. It is almost like you're doing a mixed media technique, but this time you just have fabrics as well as paints. Those of you who do mixed media often will be familiar with this process. So what I'm doing is I'm just taking some of the paint and just softening up some of the really harsh overlays in my bowl so that everything looks cohesive and that it flows smoothly. One of the things that I love to do in my sculpting or when I create dolls or when I make bowls is to add some texture. And I love working with twine, sometimes with wool, other fibers such as sisal. And yes, I've got this gray and this black twine, and I'm just going to glue it and twist it around, wrap it around the bowl a few times just to give it some texture. And while I'm working with this, I already feel or sense that I'm not going to use the light gray as well. I'm only going to use the black because it really stands out against the bowl and makes it look interesting. You can see that I use generous amounts of the gel medium because I really don't want this string or twine to come loose. Okay, so one of my favorite techniques in both my mixed media pieces my paintings as well as my textile work is to use alcohol ink. I absolutely love it. And I looked at my black and grey inks, and I think it is going to be harsh, too harsh for this bowl. And I found this fabulous camel color, and I'm going to let that drip down. Now, as it is a bit dark for me, so I'm going to take a wet wipe and just lighten it. And I think that this almost sepia type of tone just brings interest, and it also just breaks that black and white, and it is interesting, and I love it. So what I'm doing is I'm just toning it down a bit, and I'll take that same wet wipe and I'll just maybe put it here and there on an area without the ink, just to get a lighter version of it. Okay, and once it is dry, I normally, if my bowl is for decoration only, I would leave it just as it is, because the gel medium also acts as a varnish or a sealer. But if you would like to use this bowl, you can use epoxy resin on the inside and just put some resin on it, or you can use a clear varnish, a clear glass varnish. Just make sure that the ink is dry, but there you have it, a beautiful, beautiful art bowl made of fabrics. I hope you enjoyed this lesson. Goodbye.